man rushed towards the train. He quickly climbed onto the train. He tumbled into the train car. Chang saw a tarp in the car. He tried to hide under it. Jiang got up from the pain. Step by step, he approached the tarp. When he lifted the tarp, he was shocked. "Get out of the way! Get out of the way!" Jiang watched the woman's horror. He quickly closed the tarp. Jiang went to the other end of the wagon and sat her down. Then he took a biscuit out of his bag. He ate it with a big mouthful. The younger sister gulped as she watched. At that moment, a biscuit rolled in front of her. She quickly picked it up. She wiped the dirt on the pancake with her sleeve. Then she ate it with a big mouthful. Kini didn't look like a bad guy. She let go of her guard against him. "Come and pour some water." Domei asked Lao Zhang to come over and drink with her. At that moment, Lao Zhang got up and approached Domei. They had been traveling all day and all night. Suddenly the train stopped. Dodo was awakened from her sleep. At that moment, old Zhang said as he tied up the cloth bags, "He's ready to get off here." At that moment, Domei was ready to go. Old Zhang was about to climb out of the carriage. He saw Domei following him. Old Zhang said, "Don't follow me." Dodo said, "I'll follow you. You're a man I can trust." Seeing Dodo's pity, he agreed to take her with him. They soon jumped off the train. The two of them walked for 3 or 4 hours up the mountain. Dodo said she couldn't walk any further. Old Zhang told her to rest for a while before they went on. Old Zhang grabbed some water and asked her to drink. But she said she didn't have much water left. She'd save it for when she was thirsty. Old Zhang asked Dodo why she had run away. She said her men had died. "My father sold me to the men. The first one died of illness. The second one died in the county during a big fight." Dodo burst into tears as she spoke. Soon they were on their way again, in the desert, in the middle of nowhere. They traveled for another day and night. Finally, they saw a village up ahead. Dodo wanted to go forward, but Lao Zhang held her back. He said it must be dark before they could enter the village. These days, they're catching blind people everywhere. Yes, the blind. Yes, they are. What's the blind game? People like us. Old Zhang is lying down and sleeping happily. Domei puts on a cotton coat and sits down. They waited until dark. Then they sneaked into the village. The next morning, the two of them were sleeping soundly. Suddenly, a group of people wearing red armbands came over. They woke up Zhang in his sleep. They asked him to show his it. He said he didn't have it with him. Then the inspectors pushed Zhang away. Then they woke up Domei. She was shocked by the sudden inspection. The inspector said angrily, "Hurry up and show me your it." She was scared and said she hadn't brought it with her. And so the two of them were arrested and sent to a concentration camp. The next morning, old Zhang was hauling gravel in the quarry. He worked the hardest in the quarry. One came over and told Zhang to slow down. One pointed to the others on the site and said, "Look at this. Who's really fucking around on this site?" Everyone on the site is really working hard. They all look exhausted, but Zhang, who is a soldier, doesn't know how to cheat. You want to be a model worker here. You're looking in the wrong place. Let me tell you, no matter how good you are, one said you won't get a penny from Ali. One said he's planning to run away from the camp tomorrow. He asked Zhang if he'd be interested in escaping with him. Zhang said of course he would. Soon it was time to close the camp for the evening. Zhang was pushing his cart and ready to go back to the camp. What a coincidence. Domei was also assigned to work at the site. She put her water bottle on Zhang's cart, put her water bottle on old Zhang's cart. Shyly, she turned around and left. Old Zhang watched her back as she left. His heart was warm and happy. At that moment, Mr. Wong came over and picked up the kettle and asked him, "How do you know this woman?" He said he met her on the road when he was traveling blind. "You're good, aren't you? You're really fast. You just got here. What woman? You're quite a character, aren't you?" Mr. Zhang said, "Don't talk nonsense. Wong said you're a lucky girl." At night, Zhang asked Domei to meet him. Zhang said he was going to run away from here. Dodo said she wanted to run away with him. Old Zhang said there's no need for you to run away. The government will send you home. He said he ran away from a crime in his hometown. If he was sent back, he'd go to jail. That's why he had to escape from the camp. Dodo said when you get out, pay a visit to my father for me. What's your father's name? Kubuzan. Kubuzan. I hated him 2 or 3 times. He sold me. I miss him too. He's old. Zhang agreed to Domei's request. At this point, he said he was going back to the dormitory. He said he'd write to Domei when he'd settled down. Then he turned around and left. As she watched old Zhang's back, she felt very sad in her heart. During our time together, Domei knew that Lao Zhang was a good man who cared about people. Domei has fallen in love with Lao Zhang. Brother Zhang. Dodo took out her money and chased after him. Dodo said she'd leave the money for Zhang's journey. He doesn't need to spend money in the blind camp. She handed the money to Mr. Yan. "Mr. Yan, this is just money and food stamps. I know you don't have any." Dodo put the money in old Zhang's pocket. At this moment, Dodome longed for a hug from old Jiang, but the helpless Jiang didn't understand women's hearts. You can tell from her sad eyes, she couldn't bear to see him go. At that moment, Jiang bowed to Dome and left. At this moment, Dome's eyes were filled with tears. She had long thought of Jiang as her closest relative. The next morning, old Jiang and Wang sneaked out before anyone woke up. They sneaked out. They rolled into the parking lot of the blind camp. Jiang escaped with Wang in a military vehicle. Jiang was originally an automobile soldier because his childhood sweetheart was getting engaged to someone else. Although she was forced by her parents, but he was so angry that he injured her. But the injured man's uncle was a big shot. He wanted to put him in jail, so Jiang had to leave home and run away. The car ran for tens of kilometers. Suddenly, it stopped ahead. They quickly left the car. They ran towards the canyon. They ran for a day and a night. They came to a mine and found work. They worked all day in the mine. Not only was it hard work, it was also very dangerous. That night, old Jiang was turning on the water. Suddenly, a police car stopped at the mine. Jiang instantly realized that the police had come to arrest them for stealing cars. He rushed into the dormitory and found Wang. He dragged him to the police station and told him that the police were coming. The police had just brushed past them. The two of them quickly ran towards the back of the hill. They were so scared, they ran away like ghosts. They must have run for 40 to 50 miles. At that moment, Wang suddenly felt sick. Jiang immediately crouched down to check. Old Wang was in great pain. He said he was dying. He told Jiang to leave him alone, hurry and run away. As soon as he said that, old Wang hung up. Jiang was scared to death. He rushed forward. He kept running and didn't dare to stop. He was exhausted, but he didn't dare stop to rest. Until the next morning, Jiang finally fainted on the side of the road. Then a large tractor came by. The driver didn't stop for fear of trouble. The old man in the tractor found a man lying on the ground. There was a man lying on the ground. He hurriedly told the driver to stop. The driver couldn't hear him. He took off his shoes and hit the driver's side. Then the driver reluctantly stopped the car. Lao Tzu scolded the driver for being too hard-hearted. How could he do that? The driver said, if you want to save him, I'll take him to your house. Jiang was soon rescued and put into the car. Although Jiang was almost unconscious, but he knew in his heart that he had been saved. Tears flowed from the corners of his eyes. Lao Ku saved Jiang's life. Old Jiang was grateful, saved down, when he saw the dilapidated state of Ku's house. So he helped Ku to renovate the house. At that moment, Ku said he was tired. He wanted to go back to his house to rest. He told Jiang to lock the door. If anyone came looking for him, he told them he was at the doctor's. And that's exactly what happened. Soon, someone came looking for Lao Ku. The man came to the door and looked inside for a long time. A man asked Jiang who he was. I'm here to help renovate the house. The man asked where he'd been. He said he went to the hospital. Then the man thought about the donkey. I can't come here for nothing. Another man was about to pull the cart away. When Jiang saw that the men were bandits, he grabbed a shovel and yelled at them to stop. Then he jumped off the roof. I borrowed that cart to help the laborers. You want to try it? What about you? I fucking hate it. Let's go. The man left with a message. He said, if I can avoid the first day of the month, I can avoid the 15th. But he can't avoid the 15th. When the debt collectors were gone, Jiang opened the door. He saw Ku curled up in the corner of the bed. At that moment, Ku sat her day up. He asked if they were gone. Jiang asked Ku if they were debt collectors. Who did they want? A woman? Oh, me. My daughter. You sold her. The old man is crying. He had no choice. There was a famine back then. There was no food to eat. So if he didn't sell his daughter, they both starved to death. The next morning, old Jiang was working on the hill behind his house. Suddenly, he heard screams from inside the house. He rushed home. Come out, all of you. Old Tai To is injured and sick. Are you fucking human beings? You're animals. Get out of here. The old man spent the money. It's been years now. We haven't even seen a woman. Do you think we're willing to accept this? The boss asked his men to show Jiang the receipt. It's only 350 yuan. You want to force a man to die? He's sick and can't take it anymore. It's none of your business. Jiang reached into his pocket. He took out a bunch of money to pay off Ku's debt. Jiang took the money and warned the debtor. He said not to show up here again, inside the house. Ku must have been beaten to death. Jiang told Ku to hang in there. At that moment, he said what he'd been suppressing for a long time. If only I could see my daughter again. I wish I could see my daughter again. Ku took out a letter from his daughter and gave it to Jiang. It doesn't matter if you don't read it. I was shocked. Mr. Yan, are you Ku-san? Just as I finished speaking, Ku hung up. Jiang tucked him in. Everything happens by chance. The dead man was Jade's father. The father who sold his own daughter twice, Lao Zhan. He spent 7 days and 7 nights in a shabby house to observe his filial piety for Lao Chu. Time flies. 3 months have passed. He's been working in the brick factory for more than 2 months. He's a hard worker. Captain Sai appreciated him. One day, Captain Sai came to see Lao Jiang. He said a woman named Domei was looking for him. It was obvious that she was good to him. Captain West arranged for Jiang to take a half-day off this afternoon. He'll accompany Dodo to the market. Tonight, go and vacate the tool shed in the west side of the dugout. You can stay there. Uncle, I'm not staying. Let the funny sister stay. I'll thank you in advance for funny sister. In the evening, old Chang and Funny came back from shopping. They bought a lot of delicious food for the brothers at the show. They were so happy. Captain West came over to join in the fun. Domei, this is Captain Sai. He's been very concerned about your arrival. When it was quiet at night, but the couple was delayed in getting married. Dodo was so anxious that she pressed herself against old Jiang. He was so shy, he bowed his head. Dodo was also angry and lost her temper. She said old Jiang was a fool. He doesn't understand women's hearts. She teased him a little. He was baffled and didn't understand. He said he'd introduce her to a good man. It's rare for a woman to live alone. Having a man to care for her makes a family complete. At that moment, Dodo lost her temper. She threw the bowl in her hand. Old Jiang came over and kept talking. He said that man had a good heart, and he's handsome. Domei was about to vomit blood. When did you become a star's brick? Domei is facing old Jiang, who looks like a block of wood. She loved him and hated him at the same time. At this moment, Domei hugged Jiang. I want a man like you. Old Jiang said no, 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 no way. He said he was already engaged to be married back home. After that, he left the room. A month passed in a flash. On that day, the paychecks came in. Domei was happy to find Jiang. He said he'd give the money to Jiang for safekeeping. Then he slipped the money into Jiang's pocket. In the dead of night, an old rascal entered Domei's room. Domei was trembling with fear. She begged him to spare her. But the rascal said Jiang didn't want me. He then bullied her. Colleagues from the studio rushed over when they heard the screams. Old Jiang followed. They all saw Dodo's disheveled clothes. They realized she must have been bullied by the bad guys. They all went out to chase the bad guys. Mr. Jiang comforted Dodo and told her not to cry. Dodo embraced Jiang. She blamed him for not letting her go. She let the bad guys take her away. At that moment, Mr. Jiang was very sorry. The next morning, Jiang took Domei and left the factory. After such a scandal, he couldn't stay in the factory any longer. Captain Sai saw Jiang and Domei off. He told Jiang to remember to write when he settled down. That day, Jiang was resting outside his house. Suddenly, he saw Captain Sai coming. He ran down to greet him happily. This time, Captain Sai brought him rice. Old Jiang took the bag of rice from Captain Sai. He happily took his friend back to the house. Captain Sai saw the beds in the house. He realized in his heart the two of them hadn't shared a bed yet. Captain Sai was immediately upset. He demanded an explanation from Jiang. Old Jiang revealed his unknown past. He told them he was a fugitive from justice. He said he had an engaged partner at home. The captain said it's been 5 or 6 years. She's already married. The captain said you're a stubborn man. You don't want to use a good woman. You let Domei stay a widow. Domei, she's a good woman with a clear conscience. Tomorrow you'll go to work with him. I'll make the decision. Captain Sai was furious. He ran outside and got an axe. He smashed the planks between the two beds. Domei was so happy to see the boards broken. He had suffered so much because of the planks. At that moment, old Jiang realized what was going on. He came over to help. Maisie was very happy to see Jiang breaking down the planks. She thought that she could go to the bridal chamber with old Chang tonight. My sister's blood was boiling. The next morning, Jiang said he missed his parents back home. He didn't know how they were doing. And that handsome sister in the photo. Brother, I don't have a father or a mother. I know what's in your heart. Why don't you take a vacation and go back to see her? If that sister is willing, you bring him here. I'll serve you with all my heart. I won't be alone. Old Jiang is finally on the train to his hometown. He's been in hiding for 5 or 6 years. In fact, his wrongful conviction has long been vindicated. Jiang is innocent. He hid for 6 years for nothing. But unfortunately, Xiao's parents had already passed away. His betrothed girlfriend had already married and had children. Jiang's only family left is his sister Dodo. He set out on a train to return home. He came back to the familiar and Ganzi cottage. He wanted to live happily here with Domei. Here's wishing all the lovers in the world a happy life together. I also wish you a happy life in front of the screen. When a man sees his first love dating someone else, he feels bad about it. The man stole their cow. Zhao Jin and Xin Long were happy for a while. Suddenly they realized the cow was gone. They hurriedly got up to look for it. They searched every corner of the mountain, but there was no sign of the cow. The cow had been sold by the second bank to a cattle dealer. The villagers searched in vain. The next morning, my father angrily slapped Zhao Jing in the face. He called him useless. He couldn't even look after a cow. Then he took off his shoe and wanted to beat his son. Xinlan shielded her boyfriend with her body. Then the village elders pulled Zhao and said, "Calm down." That scolding wouldn't solve the problem. The next morning, Xinlan and her sister were dragging a plow to the field. The family's old ox was lost. Xinlan had to do the heavy plowing. The two sisters exerted all their strength, but they couldn't stop the old ox from stretching its legs. When they couldn't pull it, they sat her down to rest. It was too tiring for human beings. At that moment, I brought an ox over. We finished plowing. Why don't you use my ox? It's a shame. We're from the same village. When my sister heard about the oxen, she stood up happily. She stroked the cow's head and said, "Thank you." Xinlan smiled and said to Erxin, "When my family is finished, Zhao Jing's family can use your cow." "I can't. We're all in the same neighborhood, aren't we?" Erxin said he'd only lend the cows to Xinlan's family. As for Zhao Jing's family, he won't lend them? Besides, Zhao Jing is his rival in love. Erxin said he liked Xinlan very much. He asked Xinlan to consider being his girlfriend. Xinlan said she likes Zhao Jing. "Brother Erhan, are you trying to take advantage of the situation?" "I don't care what you think. I don't care what you think." Tell Erhan not to flatter himself. Xinlan got up and went to find Zhao Jing. At that moment, Zhao Jing was dragging the plow to plow the field. Xinlan ran forward to help Zhao Jing pull the plow. Xinlan's timely appearance. Zhao Jing didn't have to drag the plow so hard anymore, although they worked well together. But plowing consumes a lot of energy. Soon both of them ran out of energy. They sat her down on the ground to rest. At this time, Xinlan was still breathing heavily. Suddenly she saw the wound on Zhao Jing's shoulder. The groom stroked Zhao Jing's wound and asked him if it hurt. Zhao Jing didn't say anything. The groom asked why he didn't buy a cow. He said he didn't have any money. Xinlan said he'd borrow some money from the village chief. Then she took out $10 and gave it to Zhao Jing. She told him to buy some gifts and go to the village chief's house for money. Zhao Jing pushed away Xinlan's money with a sense of urgency. Xinlan grabbed Zhao Jing's hand. She pushed the money into Zhao Jing's hand. A man under a low roof. Who wouldn't dare to bow down? Zhao Jing went to the village headman's house with gifts to borrow money. The mayor said it's okay to borrow money, but he had to agree to one condition. Xinlan thought the mayor had agreed to lend him the money. She took the gift from Zhao Jing, put the wine on the table. The mayor said his daughter, Qiao, was very fond of Zhao Jing. If Zhao Jing would marry Qiao, he would lend Zhao Jing the money and bring 3 cows as dowry. The mayor's words infuriated Zhao Jing. He lifted the gift and walked out of the house in anger. He smashed the wine and threw the meat on the ground. Then he sat her down on a rock and sulked. Then Xinlan came over. She told Zhao Jing not to be angry. At that moment, Erhan passed by Xinlan. Looking at Zhao Jing in a terrible state, he even rubbed salt into his scars. "If you want to get the cow, there is a way. I don't know if Zhao Jing is willing to do it. Brother Erhan, what's the solution?" "Tell me." "The solution is to follow the instructions." "Look at that. You're full of shit." Xinlan told Erhan to get lost. She even slapped the cow in anger. At night, Qiao was feeding the cows in the barn. A human head poked out of the window. It was Zhao Jing peeping at Qiao Hall. Jojo was also very pretty. In front of the cruel reality, Zhao Jing had to bow his head. The mayor's offer was very tempting indeed. The next morning, Zhao Jing came to help at Qiao's house. The two of them talked and laughed as they worked together. They fed the calves together. This made Qiao very happy. Being with someone you like, it's a kind of happiness to be with someone you like. At this time, Xinlan came over. He told Zhao Jing to come out. Zhao Jing came to Xinlan reluctantly. "Why do you really want to be a son-in-law?" "Let's go." Xinlan pulled Zhao Jing out to take a look at him. Looking at Zhao Jing's back as she left, her eyes instantly filled with tears. Xinlan and Zhao Jing went to the back of the mountain. Xinlan led Zhao Jing deep into the bamboo forest. Xinlan looked around. Realizing no one was around, she hugged Zhao Jing in a hurry. That day, Zhao Jing came out from Qiao's house. She was seen by Xinlan hiding behind a tree. When Zhao Jing came under the tree, Xinlan rushed up and grabbed Zhao Jing's collar. "I heard you're getting married to Qiao. Tell me if it's true." "Is it true?" "Say it." "It's true." "What's true?" "Go and take a look." "Why?" "Ew." At that moment, Xinlan almost went crazy. All the years of love between the two of them, in Zhao Jing's heart, it's not worth a cow. Xinlan's heart was dripping with frustration. He slapped Zhao Jing and ran away. Zhao Jing and Qiao's wedding was held as scheduled. Zhao Jing carried the bride into the sedan chair. The village chief brought out 3 cows for his daughter's dowry. At night, Xinlan was crying in the field. She couldn't accept her boyfriend's heartless betrayal. Xinlan couldn't help but walk towards Zhao Jing's house. Into the Zhao compound, she came to the window of the bridal chamber. She saw the bride's white body through the window. She was filled with jealousy. Then, she saw Zhao Jing undressing and preparing to enter the bridal chamber. Xinlan's angry heart was instantly exploded. He took down the sickle hanging on the wall. and ran towards the couch in a rage. Xinlan lifted the sickle and struck the bull. He wanted to vent all his anger on the bull. Zhao Jin heard the cow's screams. He rushed to the barn to check, but he was pushed down by Xinlan, who was hiding by the side. Xinlan slowly approached Zhao Jing. He squatted down in front of Zhao Jing. He undid the buttons one by one. Zhao Jing was about to lose control of herself when she saw Shinran before her eyes. At that moment, Xinlan took off his coat again. They spent a happy night in the couch. The next morning, Zhao Jing was feeding the cows with grass. Zhao Jing asked her daughter-in-law if she was angry that she didn't go to the bridal chamber last night. She said she wasn't. She really wasn't. Although she wasn't angry, but she still felt guilty. In fact, Qiao knew what happened last night. He saw the scene in the barn with his own eyes. It's just that Qiao didn't want to reveal it. Then Qiao rubbed medicine on the bull's wound. At night, Qiao waited for her husband in bed. She wanted to go to bed with him tonight, but her husband was counting his money. Qiao moved her husband's pillow closer, but Zhao Jing got up and asked Qiao to go to bed first. Said he'd go to the living room to sleep on the sofa, leaving Jojo alone in her room. Time passed. 3 months passed. That morning, Zhao Jing and Qiao went to her mother's house to borrow money. Her father-in-law asked her what she was borrowing so much money for. Zhao Jing said she was going to set up a cattle ranch. The village has a lot of land and mountains. Grass is the one thing that's in short supply. My father-in-law thought that raising cattle was a way to make a fortune, so he agreed to lend his son-in-law the money to start his own business. When Zhao Jin was about to leave, father-in-law told Zhao Jin to be good to him. Look at Zhao Jin. Uncle Nan has taken care of you so well. You know how I feel. Zhao Jin said yes. Yes. After saying that, he took Qiao and left. Soon, Zhao Jin's cattle ranch was up and running. The villagers came to congratulate him. On this day, Zhao Jin posted a recruitment notice. The young people in the village all came to work in the cattle farm. Xinlan also became a breeder at the cattle ranch. On this day, Sanluan and Xinlan were fooling around in the cattle yard. Zhao Jin rushed over and scolded Sanluan. Don't touch me. If I do that again, I'll fire you. Sanluan was scolded and left in a hurry. That day, Qiao was washing clothes in the river. Some village women asked about her. They said she'd been married for over a year. She hasn't had any luck with her belly. They said, "Is your husband not good enough for you?" Qiao ran away shyly. In fact, Qiao is still a virgin. That day Xinlan deliberately wanted to annoy Zhao Jin. She asked Sanluan to go to the hut in front of Zhao Jin. Sanluan was molested by Xinlan when he entered the hut. Zhao Jin, who was watching, was furious. He went up to Sanluan and punched him. Why did you hit him? You should respect yourself. What's it to do with you if I do or don't? I don't want to associate with others. Who do you think you are? Zhao Jing was so angry that she gnashed her teeth. Xinlan just wanted to see her jealousy. Zhao Jing was so upset she turned around and left. At that moment, Xinlan finally got over her anger. Ha 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 ha. As Xinlan laughed and laughed, he cried again. Xinlan knew he still loved Zhao Jing in his heart. The next morning, Xinlan brought her workers to Zhao Jing. They asked why Sanluan was fired. What had Sanluan done wrong? He was pulling on a female worker. It's affecting the morale of the farm. You know who to blame for this. I'll tell you. If you fire Sanluan today, I'll quit my job. I'll quit too. We'll quit too. All right. Let's talk about it later. Every day when Zhao Jing comes home from work, his daughter-in-law would bring him water to drink. Then she washes his feet. The husband didn't appreciate what his wife did. It was as if everything was a matter of course. At that moment, the husband brought a money box to his wife. He said it contained $100,000 in cash, enough to feed and house Jojo for the rest of her life. Zhao Jing said let's get a divorce and left the house. At that moment, Qiao was crying. Who could he tell his grievances to? He went to the couch in tears. He sat her down in front of the old ox. He told the old ox what he had been suppressing for a long time. The next morning, the father knew that his son wanted a divorce. He told his son that he wanted a divorce. You should have a conscience in this world. See what's wrong? Father, there's something you don't understand. That's bullshit. I know you're still practicing. I want to see Lon. Keep him away. Father's going to find Shinran. The son went out after him, kneeled down in front of his father. He promised not to ask Jojo for a divorce again. He promised to spare his son this time. My father-in-law also heard the news. He rushed to the cattle ranch to find Zhao Jin. Someone said that Jojo cried last night. Jojo cried. Why didn't I hear it? Qiao, your father said you cried last night. I'm glad you didn't cry. You don't trust him. Why don't you take him back to live with you? As long as you to live a good life. I'm happy. I've got a lot of work to do at the office. I won't stay with you. Zhao Jing has made a fortune. She didn't give a damn about her father-in-law. It was the groom's wedding day, and he threw the candies to the villagers. The villagers happily grabbed the candies. On the wedding night, the bride and groom sang to each other. The bride is so beautiful and charming. The bride and groom clink glasses and drink. Outside the house, Zhao Jing's heart fell like a knife. Xiao was afraid that something might happen to her husband. She followed him. Zhao Jin looked at the woman he loved. From now on, she will become someone else's bride. At this moment, Zhao Jin's heart was broken. He ran to his home in anger. Xiao followed him back home. Zhao Jin picked up a wooden stick and hit the yellow cow. One stick after another. The old ox was screaming in pain, but Zhao Jin didn't stop. On the contrary, he beat it harder and harder. Xiao stopped her husband from beating him, but her husband pushed her to the ground. Then he lifted up the wooden stick and again hit the bull. The cow's screams echoed in the dark night sky. At that moment, Zhao Jin broke the bull's rope. At this moment, the bull rushed towards Zhao Jin. Terrified, Zhao Jin dropped his stick and ran away. The bull chased Zhao Jin all the way. It was trying to take Zhao Jin's life. You can tell from the bull's murderous size, Zhao Jin's life is definitely in danger. Zhao Jin was chased by the bull and had no way to escape. At this moment, the bull rushed towards Zhao Jin. Just in the nick of time, Xiao pushed her husband away. The bull pushed Xiao against the fence. Dawa was knocked down by the bull. The old bull and Xiao were crushed to death by a stone. After losing Xiao, Zhao Jin suddenly realized that there is true love in the world. The wife gave up her life for her husband. When she realized all this, Xiao could not come back. Zhao Jin hated himself for being an asshole. At that time, the villagers found a letter in Xiao's pocket. Zhao Jin, I know you don't have me in your heart. As long as you ask for a divorce, I promise to find someone else, even if he's a mute, blind, and a kidnapper. As long as he treats me well. Besides, I'm still a virgin. Zhao Jin held Xiao's cold hand. She held it for a long time, but she didn't want to let go. If life could start over again, if we could turn back the clock, Zhao Jin would never let Xiao slip away from her side. The man raises the axe high in the air. The woman looks at the axe and trembles in fear. As the axe falls, the woman's anklet was severed. At this moment, the girl said goodbye to her status as a serf. From that moment on, she could be a decent human being. On this day, a troop entered the Tibetan area to build a highway. Along with them was a college student. He was Li Sujie, a recent graduate of the University of Geology. At noon, the troops were camping in the forest. Suddenly, someone came running for help. They said their grandpa had fallen into the river. They asked the People's Liberation Army to save their grandpa. The soldiers rushed up. The rich old man was soon rescued. The rich man regained his life. Madam was very happy. She said she wanted to fulfill a wish of the soldiers. The squad leader said no. The People's Liberation Army won't take a stitch from the people. That's great. The plot has been in Tibet for a month. Everywhere they've gone, they've done nothing wrong. They love the people like their own children. I'm touched. Sujie then noticed the ankle cuffs on the girl's feet. The wife took the money and asked the benefactor to take it. But Sujie said, no. He wanted to make another offer to the rich man. The class monitor thought that Sujie had violated the rules. He stood up in anger. At that moment, the rich man told the squad leader not to be angry. He told him to make any conditions he wanted. The rich man said that apart from his wife, he said he'd take whatever he wanted. I want to free those emancipated. Emancipate. What does emancipation mean? It means to untie them and release them. I thought it was something else. To 6,080 to take away. Taken away. The rich man saw Sujie want worthless serfs. He said happily, it's yours. Sujan said, don't regret it. Mrs. Sujie said, why should I regret it? You saved the master's life. At that moment, the rich man said he had to go back. But the two serfs subconsciously followed him. Sujie shouted at them to stop. From the girl's evasive gaze, I could tell he must have suffered a great deal as a slave girl. She must have suffered a lot as a slave girl. Her feet were chained and bruised. Sujie took the girl and told her to rest on a rock. Then she told the soldiers to bring a big rock. Sujie raised her axe and cut through the chains. The next morning, Sujie went with the army to build a highway in the Tibetan area. Yesterday, Dawa, a liberated slave, came to see his benefactor off. When Dawa saw his benefactor coming, he greeted him. Dawa bowed to his benefactor. Can I come with you? You don't want me. Dawa has no family. You saved me. You're all my family. Dawa took the chain out of his pocket and said, this chain has held him for 15 years. The People's Liberation Army saved him. He wants to follow them and cook and wash for them. Dawa saved Suj. Suj wanted to take him in, but he couldn't decide. Just then, the commander of the army came over. He found out about Dawa's situation. He knew that Dawa was a newly liberated serf. He felt very sorry for him. He took the chain from Dawa's hand. He felt sympathy for Dawa. He decided to take Dawa in. The troops soon arrived at the Sichuan-Tibet road. Soldiers opened roads in every mountain. They built bridges when they came across the mountains. In the face of difficulties, the soldiers never backed down. Dawa helped the soldiers wash their clothes. That day, Suj came to Dawa with a shortbread cake from home. Suj said they were delicious. It took a piece for Dawa to try. Dawa took a bite. His mouth was instantly filled with sweetness and flavor. It was the best flavor he had ever tasted. It's a blessing to have a friend who cares. At that moment, Sujie sat her down beside Dawa. Why is Dawa crying? Dawa said, I'm not crying. I'm smiling. Dawa said she had never eaten anything so delicious. He said it was the first time he'd ever eaten something so delicious. Sujong said he'd like to have some cookies from home. Dawa asked Sujie where his family was from. Sujong told Dawa that it was from Suzhou. At that moment, Dawa said, what does the word Suzhou look like? Soji wrote the word Suzhou on Dao's hand. Sujong wrote the word Suzhou on Dao's hand. That day, Sujie suddenly had a high fever. Dawa risked his life to go to the top of the snowy mountain to collect herbs. Dawa brought the medicine to Sujie. Sujie was very touched. He told Dawa that it was dangerous to go to the top of the snowy mountain. What if there's an avalanche? Dawa said as long as you get well soon. He wasn't afraid of any danger. That day, Suj's hometown sent him some cakes. Suj gave them to Dawa. Dawa said he had a present for Suj. He knitted a pen case out of wool. He said he'd give it to Sujie to hold his pen. Sujie happily took the case. Then he put the pen in the case. And they smiled happily at each other. We don't take a stitch from the people. That's true, isn't it? Dawa said he gave it to them willingly. This is called what take the masses a needle and thread. When we parted, Dawa asked Sujie to write the words for him. Sujan said, write what? Dawa said, write your name on the box. Sujie happily wrote his name on the box. That day, the postman Nyor came to deliver a letter. He handed a letter to Sujie. Sujie knew it was from home. He happily took the letter and read it. Nyor pulled Dawa aside. Dawa got bored and broke away from Nyor's hand. Nyor took a dress out of his bag and gave it to Dawa. Dawa said no. She said she already had someone she liked in her heart. She asked Nyor to leave her alone. Nyor said, what's so good about Sujie? He said he was a national postman. He's a national postman with an unbreakable iron rice bowl. Dawa said even if Sujie was a beggar, he wouldn't mind. Nyor was so angry, he was about to vomit blood. Suddenly there was the sound of cannon fire. Nyor was so scared, he went into Dawa's arms. Dawa said, let go. Let go of me. Danger approached Sujie. A big stone rolled down the hill. Dawa shouted, duck. Dawa yelled, get out of the way, and rushed towards Sujie. Sujie also sensed danger. He stood up. Dawa rushed over and pushed Sujie away. It hit Suj right where he was standing. Dawa saved Sujie's life. From that moment on, their relationship was elevated. That day, when the soldiers were resting, Dawa was asked to sing a song for them. Dawa's voice was so beautiful, Sojourner gave her a thumbs up. At that moment, the sisters also sang. He's slipping on the shore. Dawa and Suj were both shy. That day, Sujie and Dawa were riding horses in the wild. They were so happy together. They wished it could last forever. Then Dawa jumped from the horse and jumped over to Sujie. He clung to Suj's waist and snuggled up to the man she loved. At that moment, Dawa felt she was the best of all time. At that moment, Dawa felt like the happiest girl in the world. With Dawa by her side, Suj was also intoxicated with happiness. In fact, Sujie was deeply in love with Dawa. 2 years passed by. That day, Sujie came to Dawa. He said the highway had been repaired. The troops were ready to leave for other places. He was going back to his hometown in Suzhou. Sujie told Dawa that he lived at the end of the Yangtze River. He said Dawa lives at the head of the Yangtze. The Yangtze River originates in Tibet. Suj told Dawa that if she missed him, he told Dawa that if she missed him, she should go to the head of the Yangtze River. Sujie told Dawa to wait for him. He'd come to fetch him when he was settled. Who would have thought that Dawa would wait for more than 60 years? Sujie had changed from a sunny, handsome boy to a gray-haired old man. That day, Mom asked Jaja to accompany Grandpa to the Tibetan area to fulfill Grandpa's last wish. Because Grandpa had been talking about Dawa for decades, Grandpa's health was getting worse every year. I wanted to fulfill Grandpa's wish in his lifetime. They took an airplane to Tibet. Then they rented a car. They implanted the car in the place where they used to work. They inquired about Dawa's whereabouts. Since more than 60 years have passed, they asked a lot of people, but they didn't get any clues. They had to go to the county government for help. The staff said the name Dawa was too common. There are down scenes of people named Dawa in the whole county. Sujie said, Dawa built the Sichuan-Tibet highway 60 years ago. At this time, the staff finally found information about Dawa and sent a staff member to assist in the search. They drove straight to Dawa's village. They stopped at the entrance of the village by a small wooden bridge. They got out and asked the girl watching the cows if there was a grandmother named Dawa in the village. Grandma Dawa died 4 days ago. When Sujie heard the news, he fainted on the spot. At noon, they came to Dawa's door. The door was opened by Dawa's granddaughter, Choma. Drama asked Mr. Su where he was from. Grandpa Su said he was from Suzhou. Drama closed the door behind them. Mr. Su and his team were shut out. After a while, Dawa's grandson, Jiang, came back. He asked where he was from. Mr. Su told him he was from Suzhou. Jiang closed the door mercilessly. Mr. Su was puzzled. Why don't they like Suzhou people? In the afternoon, Mr. Su brought a lot of gifts. Mr. Su wanted to drop off the gifts and go back to Suzhou. Listen to me, young man. Your grandmother and I were good friends 60 years ago. I came all the way from Suzhou. To see him. But Jiang threw away all the gifts. Jiang said Jiang was unkind. He's a complete asshole. Jiang told Jiang to run away. Grandpa, it's been 60 years. 60 years and you're here now. You're too late. You know what? He can't go on. He closed the door again. They were halfway there. Grandpa got restless in the car. He said he wanted to go to Dawa's house again. Jiang said not to go. But Grandpa said I was 85 years old. He wanted me to die with regrets. Jiang knew that Grandpa's life had not been easy. So she told the driver to turn around and go to Dawa's house again. When they arrived at Dawa's door, Drama was lying on her stomach and fainted. Jiang rushed to the door. The three of them rushed Drama to the hospital's emergency room. At that moment, Jiang also came to the hospital. The hospital doctor told Jiang Drama was suffering from acute appendicitis. Luckily, she was taken to the hospital in time. If we had been half an hour later, she could have died. Jiang kept thanking the doctor. You can't thank my mom enough. Thanks to your family, they brought her to the hospital in time. Otherwise, she would have been in trouble. The doctor left after that. Jiang looked towards his sister's savior, but Jiang turned her body into staying. Jiang brazenly walked up to Jiang's side. Excuse me, it's your mom. Why can't it be us? Grandpa Su signaled Jiang to stop arguing. Jiang gave Grandpa Su a big salute. Soon Drama was discharged from the hospital and returned home. Grandpa Su came to Dawa's place. Jiang made a cup of tea for Grandpa Su. Grandpa Su looked at Dawa's portrait and wept. Drama asked Grandpa Su to come and sit down. Jiang also warmly brought Grandpa Su a cup of oil tea. Jiang reluctantly gave Jiang a cup of tea. Jiang just looked at the oil tea a few more times. If you think it's dirty, hey, how can you talk like that? What did I say? If it wasn't for the fact that you saved my sister's life, I never associate with you Suzhou people in my life. You know what? Drama told her brother to shut up. Jiang didn't take her sister's words seriously. At this point, Jiang started to make personal attacks, calling Suzhou people heartless. They don't have a conscience or morals. He made Jiang vomit blood. Jiang called Jiang an asshole and a scoundrel. Jiang said, I'll beat you up if you don't stop cursing. Jiang said, go ahead. At this point, Jiang couldn't stand it any longer. Get out of here! Jiang, I'm telling you to get out. This slap calmed his brother down. Drama almost fainted because she was weak. My sister told me how Grandma Dawa taught us. Grandma Dawa said that the world can harm us. We can't let the world get in our way. Grandma Dawa also taught us that everyone is a guest. We must treat them as guests. At this point, Jiang was finally calmer. Drama kept apologizing to Grandpa Su. Grandpa Su said you were right. It's my fault for being late. I'm sorry for your Grandma Dawa. Jiang said, why don't you write a letter after 60 years? Grandma Dawa has been waiting for you for over 60 years. Waiting day and night. How did she survive? Grandpa Su said, I wrote a letter. Then Jiang came forward and said, you're slandering a dead man. I'll show you the letters. Jiang pointed to the bag of letters and said, open your eyes and take a good look. There must be thousands of letters here. Then he dumped the letters on the table. Jiang picked up a letter and went to Jiang. But where are you standing? They've all been returned. There's a stamp that says there's no such person. Read it yourself. Look at it. It's got warts and time on it. Jiang angrily slammed the letter on the table. Soma slowly picked up the letter and read it. Missing Dawa. It's been a long time. How are you? Why does every letter say there's no such person and he'll be back? Everyone's eyes were moist. It turns out that we really misunderstood Grandpa Su. At that moment, Grandpa Su told us what happened 60 years ago. Sujie returned to Suzhou after repairing the Sichuan-Tibet highway. It was a special time for the country. Sujie was labeled a rightist. That day, on his way to labor reform, he received another letter from Kangding. At first, Sujie thought it was from Dawa, but it was Nyor, who had been courting Dawa for years. Comrade Secretary Li has let you down. When you opened this letter, you must have guessed who I am. I'm Yor, the perfume oil man. I know you like Dawa very much, but I have to tell you, I love him even more. We're going to be married soon. Please don't bother the king anymore. At that moment, Sujie's mind went blank. The woman he loved so much, she left him at the lowest point in his life. Sujun's heart broke at that moment. He smashed his luggage to pieces. So Su spent 5 years in the farm. Drama said Grandma Dawa never married. He and Zai were orphans adopted by her. My grandma waited for your promise. She waited her whole life. Until he died. He thought you were going to take him to Suzhou. It's all this. I'm here. I just read your name. And he's gone. Zai blamed Grandpa Su. He forgot his promise to Grandma Dawa. Instead, he got married and had a child. Jiang went forward and told Zhuoma and her siblings. In fact, Grandpa never married. For the promise he made when he was young. He waited for love for more than 60 years. Grandpa adopted his own niece. Grandpa adopted Jiajia's mother. At that moment, Jiaxi and Zhuoma finally understood. Their eyes instantly turned to Grandpa Su. The man in front of them made them respect him. The old generation's dedication to love. It was beyond their imagination. For the sake of love, they could spend their whole lives to protect it. The woolen quilt cover you made for me 60 years ago. I've always kept it with me. Dawa, I'm looking at you. At that moment, Grandpa Su pulled out a bank card. He said there was $10 million on it. The password is Grandma Dawa's birthday. He told Drama and her brother to take it and live a good life. At that moment, the two siblings happily called out to Grandpa. Drama gave Grandma's last relics to Grandpa Su. Grandma kept it for 60 years. This iron chain, Grandma used to take it out every day. She touched it. They went to the stream where they came 60 years ago. The water was still so clear. Grandma's ashes were sprinkled in the stream. Grandma said, 60 years ago he met a man from Suzhou. They liberated him. That's why Grandma told us before she died. When he was gone, we must scatter his ashes in this creek, so that they can float along this stream to the city wall. To Suzhou, but lovers can't be lovers after all. It's a pity that time can't be turned back. At that time, the country was in a state of emergency. They were separated for life. You live at the head of the Yangtze River. I live at the end of the Yangtze. I think about you every day, but I don't see you. Grandpa Su put the letters into the stream one by one. Then he put the cakes into the stream one by one. Grandpa Su asked the stream to pass on his love to Dawa. It's been more than 60 years since they left each other. At that place where they met. But they'll never wait for the lovers they once loved. When the time comes, I'll ask my children to bring my ashes. I'll fly them here from Suzhou. At the place where we met, I'll follow this stream to find you. I'll find you for sure.